The stars above burned with sterile indifference as Supreme Strategist Kael'vor stood on the observation deck of the command vessel, arms folded behind his back. Below, the planet Virex, 9 spun in slow agony. Its forests blackened from orbital strikes, its cities cracked open like fruit. Another successful conquest, another primitive world brought to heel. And yet, something remained. Anomalous human resistance activity had been logged 3 cycles ago. A lone biological signal. Faint, fleeting. It evaded perimeter drones, decoyed thermal scans, and disrupted communications. The analysts dubbed it a stray, likely a surviving scout or perhaps a desperate fugitive. Kael'vor disagreed. A human scout wouldn't have evaded Class 700 drones. It wouldn't have downed 2 recon walkers in the span of cycle. Still, protocol was protocol. He ordered a full cleanse sweep, 400 elite warriors of the Tarkin Blades, genetically perfected and armed with autoreactive plasma armor. Each had seen centuries of warfare. Each carried victory in their bones. Kael'vor would allow them to hunt the human anomaly directly. Not for strategic necessity, no, for sport. It would boost morale after a dull conquest. He watched the mission briefing unfold. Squads deployed from orbit via drop pods, thundering into the northern quadrant, a region thick with ancient forest and jagged mountains. Satellite overlays painted the terrain as hostile to movement, ideal for ambushes. Not that it mattered. The Tarkin Blades thrived in such conditions. One of the commanders, Valak Sun, smirked as he reviewed the map. A single human against the best of the Dominion? This would be a dance. Sensor logs displayed erratic heat signatures moving just beyond range. Someone, knew exactly where the satellites were blind. Kael'vor tilted his head. Curious. There was no pattern to the movement. It appeared random. But then, perhaps that was the point. Reports streamed in from the outer squads. Nothing unusual. One patrol found an old human shelter, abandoned, tech stripped clean. Another unearthed primitive traps, tripwires, sharpened sticks, signs of old resistance. Yet the anomaly remained. Always close, never caught. Troopers reported fleeting glimpses, a shimmer between trees, an echo of movement in mist. The squad leaders laughed it off. Just ghosts, one said. But ghosts didn't leave mutilated remains. The first kill report arrived 12 hours into the operation. A 5-man team, Squad 10B, ceased all transmissions. Their helmet feeds cut to black simultaneously. Drone recon was dispatched. The drone never returned. A second team retrieved what was left. Scorched armor, blood pooled across fractured bark, no bodies. No human scent trails. No comm signatures. Just void. Valak Sun scowled. He doubled patrols. Kael'vor approved the escalation without comment. From the control deck, Kael'vor examined the mission telemetry. He watched as movement patterns shifted. The anomaly no longer avoided patrols. It moved toward them, brazen, strategic. It struck outer teams at dusk, disappearing before reinforcements arrived. Always just far enough to remain untouchable. Always leaving a message behind. One patrol found a helmet embedded in a tree trunk, shattered from the inside. Another squad discovered their own encrypted data cores arranged in a pattern on the ground. Translated, it spelled one word in Dominion script. Watching. By the second day, 30 troopers were missing. No witnesses. No confirmed visual contact. But morale began to fray. Some warriors deactivated external comms, muttering to themselves. One squad refused to leave their landing zone, citing echoes in the dark that mimicked their own voices. Kael'vor gathered his senior command in the war chamber. "We are not facing a stray," he declared. "This is deliberate." His voice did not rise. It didn't need to. "We are facing a hunter." A silence settled over the room. No one spoke the obvious, that a single human operative had dismantled entire detachments before. The Dominion knew of the Terrans' adaptability, their obsession with war, but they had believed them scattered, on the defensive since the war began. Perhaps not. Valak Sun suggested orbital bombardment of the northern forests. Kael'vor denied the request. He wanted the specimen intact. It is the first of something. We must understand it. He dispatched the next wave, fully armed, anti-stealth protocols engaged, Neuralink squads running overlapping sensor fields. The hunt was no longer sport. It was necessity. Somewhere in the forests of Virex, 9, a lone Terran watched the skies. It were no insignia. Its armor was silent black, matte and scarred. Its breathing didn't fog the air. Its eyes reflected no light. The creature crouched amid the moss and stone, listening to the approach of its next prey. Kael'vor, back on his ship, sensed a chill ripple down his spine, a biological response he hadn't felt in over a century. He didn't know why. The forest closed around them like a trap. Squad Varric, 3 moved in disciplined formation, their armor glowing faintly with shielding sigils, weapons ready. They joked at first, banter about target practice, about how humans always died running. But their laughter faded with each step deeper into the mist. Motion trackers flickered inconsistently. Environmental sensors picked up temperature drops without cause. Lieutenant Coran ordered a diagnostic sweep. The sweep returned clean. Yet something felt wrong. 40 minutes in, their rear scout vanished. No scream, no signal loss. Just gone. A flicker on the proximity grid, then static. The squad paused. Thermal scans showed nothing. They assumed a terrain mishap, maybe a fall into a sinkhole. Protocol dictated retrieval. 2 units backtracked. They never came back. Coran reported the incident to Central Command. A drone was dispatched. Its visual feed caught only the trailing edge of something slipping between trees. Bipedal, low to the ground, then gone. Audio feed captured faint breathing, almost mechanical. Then a wet crunch. Silence. Higher command ordered squads to fan out and lock down the sector. Overlapping coverage, full weapons readiness, authorization for lethal force. The so-called scout was now a priority threat. Meanwhile, individual squad leaders began noticing signs. Gear tampered with. Ammunition stores moved, not missing, relocated. Personal insignias cut from armor while they slept. One warrior awoke with a knife embedded in the tree above his head, his helmet missing. The message was clear. I could have killed you. The fear was spreading, though none would admit it. Tarkin blades did not fear. And yet, their movements grew cautious. Gone was the confident swagger. Jokes vanished. Orders were whispered. Eyes darted to shadows. The trees felt alive. Squad Red Han. 2 was the next to fall. They entered a rocky gulch, standard patrol route. Minutes later, only screaming. What returned from their comms were garbled shouts, the unmistakable sound of close combat, and then a series of wet, visceral impacts. One feed cut back in briefly. Helmet cam of a trooper being dragged away by something fast and nearly invisible, the forest canopy spinning wildly above. The feed ended with the sound of bones snapping. A battlefield AI monitoring unit flagged the incident as systemic engagement deviation. Translation: they were being hunted. The being, whatever it was, never left tracks. It knew Dominion tech. It jammed signals, corrupted drones mid-flight, laid false heat trails. It played with them. Command's assumption of a human scout had evaporated. This was something else. Something trained. Something designed. Kael'vor diverted air support to scan the entire region, but the results were inconclusive. The operative seemed to vanish at will, evading spectral imaging and EM pulse grids. Even heartbeat sensors failed. It was as if the thing could erase itself from the environment. Still, the Dominion pressed forward. They outnumbered it 400 to 1. No matter how dangerous, a single entity couldn't withstand sustained assault. Orders were clear. Flush it out, corner it, capture or eliminate. The squads began moving in synchronized waves. That's when the traps began. Simple things. Crude, and yet horrifyingly effective. One squad's lead trooper stepped through undergrowth, triggering a coil that tore his armor apart from within. Another team's weapons were fused by a localized EMP burst, the exact frequency needed to bypass shielding. They were slaughtered minutes later. Screams echoed through command channels, cut short mid-sentence, often followed by silence, then a new voice, repeating back their last words in perfect mimicry. The operative was dismantling them, not through firepower, but precision. It attacked at weak points, struck only when isolated squads strayed too far from the center. It knew their formations, predicted their fallback patterns. It was thinking like them, but faster. Valak soon ordered a fallback to a defensible ridge. 70 troopers formed a perimeter, overlapping fields of fire, turrets deployed. For the first time, the alien forces prepared for a siege. They waited. Nothing came that night. No movement, no sound, just the wind. At dawn, a patrol found something in the center of camp. Not a body. A helmet, Dominion issue, filled with blood. Inside it, carved into the polymer, a single word in Terran Standard, wake. Command panicked. Valak soon demanded to know how the perimeter had been breached without any alarm. The defensive AI returned no anomalies. There were no gaps, no blind spots. The only conclusion was impossible. The human had walked straight through them. Kael'vor reviewed the data personally. He replayed telemetry, examined logs. Everything made sense, and yet the kills continued. Precision, timing. The being avoided full engagements, always retreating before counterstrike. It had no fear. It showed no emotion. It was a machine made of flesh. A war priest among the Dominion ranks declared the being to be cursed, some Terran abomination bred in defiance of the natural order. His words were ignored, but privately, many began to wonder if he was right. By the end of the second cycle, 87 Dominion troops were confirmed dead, another 30 missing. No sign of the enemy, no confirmation of injury, no surrender. The only thing they had were blood-soaked symbols, left intentionally for psychological effect. The human was not just killing, it was breaking them, piece by piece, with surgical clarity and brutal purpose. And always one step ahead. It began with the 3rd Command Center losing contact. 60 warriors stationed, perimeter hardened by kinetic turrets and auto-sensing mines. All went dark in under 4 minutes. A backup drone captured only fragments, shadows moving faster than the frame rate, flashes of plasma ricocheting off nothing, and a final image of the command tent collapsing inward as if pulled by invisible force. No explosions, no warnings, total silence. Kael'vor authorized full engagement. All remaining units were instructed to converge on the last known position. 200 warriors advanced, weaving through dense terrain in synchronized columns. Air support scouted ahead. Nothing. Then one of the forward dropships lost altitude mid-flight. An override signal had hijacked its systems, forcing it to crash into a shallow valley. The wreckage burned, but no bodies were recovered. From the tree-line, it attacked. The first strike was surgical. A sniper shot from high ground pierced a command officer's neural node, bypassing armor, killing him instantly. Before the troops could react, a second barrage disabled a squad's exopacks, grounding them. The operator emerged, moving with unnatural speed, blending into the mist and foliage. Armor blackened and pitted, its body modified beyond baseline human limitations. The Dominion opened fire, yet nothing hit. It had already moved. 5 squads flanked left, cutting off retreat. They vanished in 12 minutes. Scanners picked up heat spikes, then silence. The ground teams investigating the area found armor fragments, detached limbs, and carved Dominion insignias, defaced by crude human etchings. One of the corpses had been arranged kneeling, head bowed, hands tied. A psychological play, one meant to insult. It began to strike in open combat. Squads tried to regroup. They formed firewalls, dropped auto turrets, activated motion fences. The humans stormed the first barrier under the cover of smoke and triggered confusion by broadcasting Dominion command codes across all channels. Friendly fire incidents broke out. Units turned on each other in panic. In the chaos, the operator tore through them, using the cover of disorder like a scalpel. A veteran of the Tarkin Blades, Commander Ural Sek, engaged it directly. He led a squad of 20, handpicked, each armed with grav sabers and close-range disruptors. They cornered the target inside a ravine. Thermal confirmed its presence. They closed in. 1 minute later, only static. A short clip leaked to command. Uralsec swinging blindly at a blur, shouting orders, then choking as his own saber was driven through his back. The camera angle shifted to show the operator watching, face unreadable behind a sealed helmet, then stepping over the commander without hesitation. Kael'vor watched the data feed collapse in real time. Loss reports flooded in, dozens dead every hour. Entire companies routed. He traced movement patterns, but there were none. The human was unpredictable, switching biomes, assaulting points of strength instead of weakness, never hitting the same way twice. It learned. It adapted. It evolved with every kill. In a desperate attempt, Kael'vor authorized full atmospheric burn. 100 kilometers of forest reduced to ash within 3 hours. The sky turned red. The terrain melted. Dominion troops moved in through the smog, scanning for remains. Instead, they found a beacon, one of their own, repurposed, hacked to loop a human voice, distorted and slow. This is not a war. This is judgment. The operator struck again during the withdrawal phase. Using thermal vent trenches to conceal its approach, it infiltrated the forward medevac zone, slaughtered 22 injured personnel, then disabled the exfil craft by detonating its own fuel cells remotely. Not a single shot fired. Not a single witness survived. Only charred corpses and equipment arranged in concentric circles, as if mocking ritual. An elite force attempted to extract via drop shuttle. The vessel was brought down mid-launch, its anti-missile systems overridden and turned inward. On impact, the emergency hatches failed. Black smoke spiraled into the dusk. There were no survivors. Some of the Dominion troopers began to break ranks. These were not recruits, but battle-hardened veterans of dozens of campaigns. They abandoned formation, discarded gear, ran into the trees. Some shot themselves rather than wait for the operator to find them. Command units began executing deserters to maintain discipline. Kael'vor finally gave the kill order. Terminate the anomaly at all costs. No more attempts at capture. All remaining forces, just under 100, moved toward the projected path of engagement. It didn't wait. Instead, it came for them. The final assault lasted less than an hour. Gunfire flared, energy weapons roared, but the operator tore through them in a torrent of precision. Close quarters executions. Blinding flanks. It used fallen Dominion weapons, repurposed their tactics, predicted their movements. The air filled with smoke, screams, static. Kael'vor lost visual. His link to the ground went dark. His personal guard readied for breach, but none came. Until the primary console lit up. A video feed activated, taken from a Dominion drone. It showed the last living officer kneeling before the operator. No words, just silence. The operator leaned in, placed a device into the officer's hand, then walked away. Moments later, the device activated. It uploaded a full data log to the Dominion command ship. The contents were simple: video logs of every kill, every tactic used, and a message encoded in Dominion dialect. This was one of us. You created it. You taught it how to fight. You taught it to fear nothing. We listened. We learned. We remembered. Now we respond. Then silence. Kael'vor stood alone in his command chamber, a single phrase echoing in his mind. One of them did this. Just one. The command ship hung in low orbit, motionless, no longer relaying orders. Kael'vor stared at the tactical board, now blank. 400 of the Dominion's finest gone. Not routed. Not surrendered. Erased. What had begun as a sweep had turned into an unraveling of control, discipline, and certainty. No distress calls came in now. No survivors. Just silence and a single transmission repeating on all frequencies. You taught us how to be monsters. He initiated emergency debrief. The upper echelon of the Dominion fleet gathered via encrypted channels. Dozens of hardened strategists and architects of war. He delivered the report without embellishment. They listened, expressionless. He ended with the footage from the drone, unfiltered, showing the Terran operative tearing through the best units the galaxy had produced. None spoke for a long time. Finally, Supreme Warlord Thrain Tor issued a directive. Contained the story. The existence of such a being let alone its total success, would destabilize the outer systems. Panic would ripple through their subjugated worlds. The illusion of invincibility had to be preserved. Kael'vor was ordered to sterilize the entire planet. Scorch protocol. Deny retrieval. Leave no trace. He knew it wouldn't work. The being was gone. No trace remained. Heat scans showed nothing. The terrain, once scarred by battle, was now cooling. No movement. No signals. But they both knew what that meant. It had moved on. It had used the engagement as a demonstration, not just of power, but of principle. Back on Virex, 9. Embedded relay nodes hidden beneath scorched soil began to activate. Silent signals broadcast into deep space. Simple pulses, encoded with location data and kill logs. The message wasn't for the Dominion. It was for others. For humans. For what was left of them. The message was clear. Not only could they strike back, they already had. Within 2 cycles, rumors spread across neutral systems. Of an elite Dominion force wiped out to the last man. Of a human operative moving unseen, leaving trails of ruined machines and silent battlefields. Of whispers in spaceports about a ghost soldier, a black revenant, who hunted oppressors across the stars. The Dominion tried to deny it, but denial couldn't erase bodies. Couldn't hide the growing hesitation in the eyes of younger officers. Couldn't suppress the rising number of raids disrupted by lone saboteurs using identical methods, precision attacks, signal distortion, psychological warfare. A new pattern emerged. Kael'vor reviewed field reports from other worlds. Similar anomalies. Isolated, but growing in frequency. Ships lost in deep patrol. Convoys found adrift, crews missing. Forward bases infiltrated without alarms. Every time, a single set of footprints. Different planets. Same outcome. A shift was occurring. He ordered new training programs, updated protocols, restructured entire combat doctrines to prepare for these attacks. But the damage was already done. Faith had cracked. The Dominion's edge, the myth of their unassailable dominance, had fractured. Because now every soldier on every front line had to ask a question. What if this one shows up? The elite Tarkin blades, once symbols of fear, now became quiet when the topic surfaced. Recruits hesitated to deploy without triple redundant perimeter coverage. In hushed briefings, some officers began calling them phantoms, a term the Dominion had once used to mock early human resistance. The mockery had returned, now with grim weight. Across the galaxy, resistance cells that had once lived in hiding began to stir. They shared the logs, replayed the footage, learned the tactics. The Terran operative had done more than kill 400 elite troops. It had created a blueprint. The movement did not name him. It didn't need to. In encrypted messages passed between fractured factions, they referred to the event on Virex, 9 by a single code, First Strike. And the message was spreading. Dominion-controlled systems saw subtle shifts. Supply lines disrupted by seemingly random sabotage. Key officers vanished. Civilian collaborators recanted overnight. Armories discovered looted with no breach. A pattern of operations too coordinated to be coincidence. The Dominion blamed organized rebellion. But the truth was worse. A single soldier had taught them all what was possible. Kael'vor withdrew from field command within a year. He cited strategic reassignment. In truth, he had come to believe that the Terran wasn't a rogue asset, not a failure of containment. It was something worse, a deliberate creation. The Terrans had been studying the Dominion, watching their wars, learning their systems. Then they made something, a living response to centuries of oppression, of forced compliance. A soldier not bound by fear, bureaucracy, or hesitation. A weapon that adapted faster than any doctrine, that moved like myth and killed like truth. And it had worked. What haunted Kael'vor wasn't a loss. It wasn't the death of elite soldiers or the failure of protocols. It was the realization that the human hadn't needed an army, just purpose. In the decades that followed, war spread again, but differently. The Dominion still held power, but its grip weakened. The rebellion gained teeth. Coordinated strikes replaced random raids. Whole sectors began to resist openly. And behind every movement, the story persisted. Not a name, not a hero, just a whisper passed from world to world like a promise. One of us did this, and if one could, others would follow.